Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you one of my favorite lines in the London system that leads to some amazing traps that when you are able to get them online, it makes it look like you are playing like an engine. There are brilliant moves all around. Let's get right into it. So the best part about these lines is that they start with a relatively normal London system. I'll be going through one of my online games, just looking at the basic setup to start. We have our pawn pyramid, of course, just to give you a quick refresher on what we want out of this opening. After black plays c5 especially, we want to reinforce our pawn center with both the c pawn and the e pawn. Knight d2, I like to play this move before playing knight f3, which is eventually where we want our other knight to go. Our bishop is going to develop out here, but the reason I like knight d2 is that it leaves options open for black to go wrong a little bit earlier in the game, and it also allows our rook a little bit of breathing room in some lines where like the queen is going to come out here, and we're going to meet it out here. e6, knight f3, continuing our development, and now this is kind of the first big moment where we need to change the position to our advantage if we're going to go for these traps. So usually when this bishop comes out to d6, what London players are told is you want to rock back. And the idea is that if black captures our bishop on g3, we will recapture with the h-pawn, opening up for our rook. And then once our light squared bishop comes out, we're able to sort of start ganging up on this h-pawn, and it's really dangerous for black to castle this way. But instead, for these specific lines, we can actually jump our knight into e5 a little bit earlier, and you can do this in a variety of move orders, and often you want to make this move in the middle game anyway. You just need to make sure that you're counting your attackers versus your defenders. Make sure you've got everything covered once you make this move, but it's a good way to lock down the center. And again, it's just giving opportunities for black to go wrong, because if they make the seemingly natural move of just capturing with the knight, we can recapture with this pawn, forking the bishop and the knight, and we're going to be winning really early on in the game. If black captures with the bishop, we can also recapture with the pawn or the bishop. Just recognizing that if the knight captures our bishop, then we're eventually going to have to recapture with the pawn. So you do have to get used to the idea of having these doubled pawns. But this pawn on e5 is actually a huge thorn in black's side. And often as you get better, your opponents aren't actually going to want to take that knight, because it's going to kick this knight back, controlling these two squares. Black's going to have to waste some time trying to get rid of it or putting a lot of pressure on that pawn. And in the meantime, we're going to build up our position in other ways. And black's going to be making their position worse, just trying to get rid of that annoying pawn. So, okay, big sidebar just to explain the move knight e5. In this game, black continued with queen c7, just continuing to build up pressure. Now we bring our other knight to f3. Black castles, we bring our bishop out to the strong diagonal on d3. In this game, black tossed in the move c4, so I just dropped my bishop back to c2. The lines I'm going to show you work whether your bishop is on c2 or on d3. And now here's the big moment. So black plays knight d7, trying to add just one more attacker to our knight. And basically, like I said, black doesn't want to allow us to capture with this pawn, so what they're trying to do is force us to start capturing them and go down all these lines of trades and not, grab this central control with our pawn. And by adding 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers, we don't have another way to add another defender. So most of the time you're going to be, forced to do exactly what black wants. But in this exact position, this is where the brilliant moves start to come into play. So instead of, starting to capture, we're actually going to play knight g5, leaving our knight for the taking, but going after these weak pawns around black's king. And something you should notice right away, and something that's going to come into play here, is that this is adding an attacker with the bishop to this h7 square. That's going to be very important. So there are three main ways that black can respond to this, and all of them are completely losing, whether they are losing by checkmate or they're going to be losing black in exchange, a piece, you're totally winning. And that's all of these three pawn options that black can move forward to try and stop our attack. And at the end, I'll show you what happens if black just ignores this threat and instead just decides to capture on e5, which I have also faced. So let's start. What if black plays f6? This is the best case scenario because we have mate and 2 in this position. We're going to give the check with the bishop defended by the knight. Black's king only has one square to move, and that's to h8. And now we bring our other knight in to g6 for checkmate. So as soon as you see the move f6, you can celebrate. You just got to find the right checks and it's easy peasy. What about g6? And this does seem to kind of blunt our bishop's attack, but this is where another brilliant move comes in. We can actually play knight takes h7, and if the black king takes, this pawn is now pinned to the king by our bishop. And so we get to play this really pretty queen h5 move, checking the king, and this pawn can't take our queen because the bishop would then be attacking the king. And no matter where the black king goes, we're going to continue attacking it. So if it goes to g7, we're going to give a check on h6 with our queen. Black can try to run away with king f6 if they want to get checkmated in one move. So that one doesn't work. And if the black king goes back to g8, which is its only other option, then we get to sacrifice our other knight. And if this pawn takes, then we have another checkmate with check on g6, king can only move to h8, and then we get this nice battery checkmate right on the edge of the board, having broken down all of black's defenses with our valiant knights. And then going all the way back to this position, our last pawn option for black is the move h6. You know, moving this pawn out of the way, it was under attack, and now they're attacking our knight. Seems like the knight has to move, right? Wrong. Of course, we're just going to check with the bishop anyway. It doesn't matter if there's a pawn there. We can still give check. The king goes to the corner, and now we play knight e takes f7. And basically, this would be checkmate if the rook wasn't there. The rook is forced to take. We take with the other knight. This does leave the defense of our bishop, so black is able to take our bishop. But now we have two attackers on black's bishop on d6. We can capture with our bishop, attacking the queen. The queen will be forced to move. Usually the move you see is this one, and there's multiple ways to win here. We can defend our pawn and attack the king with a move like queen c2. We can also just try and like simplify because we're up an exchange and a pawn. In this specific game, I won't walk you all the way to the end, but I did end up trading down a lot of pieces and basically going into an endgame. But when you're in an endgame and you're up a piece or you're up an exchange, makes the endgame a lot easier. So you're totally winning here even if you don't find a checkmate right away. So the only other question is what happens if black decides to ignore this threat on their king and just go after the material they're going to win on e5. So usually you are able to just continue attacking, and if you can calculate far enough in advance, it's going to work out just fine for you. Honestly, the attack kind of plays itself because black's always trying to like maneuver their pieces to defend everything. The best move for black in this position is actually to bring their knight back to f6. Like that's how bad it is that they need to waste a tempo, you know, moving their knight here and then all the way back just to defend this very important h7 square. Hey everyone, editor Kamryn here. I just realized I never actually told you what to do if they play the best move, so I'm here to tell you now. You can play knight g4, just trying to get rid of that knight, and again, just go after that h7 pawn. You can also play like h4 and just kind of storm on the king side. You can even castle. It's slightly lower. It's like plus 0.4 if you do that. There's like other moves too that are just kind of like fine for white. But continuing to go after the attack is really what you want to do. If black, for example, takes with this knight. Now you should have a pretty good idea of what we're going to do here. Of course, we're going to give the check with the bishop on h7. And now the best way to keep our advantage is actually just to calmly capture on e5 with the pawn. If, say, the knight takes, we can now bring our queen into the attack, and we're threatening things like moving our bishop back and giving checkmate on h7. And that's actually surprisingly hard for black to stop. They have to find this move knight g4, and the idea is that after this bishop moves and our queen is giving check, they want to jump their knight up to f6. So now our checkmate idea doesn't quite work, but we're still going to be winning material. So we can capture the bishop on d6, queen captures, and now we just take the knight. And we're up a clean piece, and we can move our bishop out of here when it needs to. You know, if they play a move like this, well, we're going to win anyway. So if you're nervous or curious about, you know, some other lines, I'd encourage you to look at the engine. But what you're most likely going to get is one of these 3 pawn moves moving forward, like I showed earlier in the video. I hope you can have some fun with these lines. If you like this video, please do consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot, and I will see you soon.